something possessed me to see one battle after another. I know what possessed me to see this movie. It's not really like a mystery. It's not the reason why this movie. I felt like I needed to see it. I'll say that. I'll say that. I felt like I needed to see it. I I had come from, so my wife and I, one of our favorite films is No Country, not No Country for Old Men. That's There Will Be Blood. Pardon me. Came out the same year. Both came out in 2007, I believe, and both were competing for an Academy Award that year. And one of my favorite movies, one of my wife's favorite movies, is There Will Be Blood. And Paul Thomas Anderson was the director of this movie. He also did Boogie Nights, which I didn't particularly like. Magnolia, which I really quite liked in the 90s when I saw it in an indie theater. I thought it was amazing. I don't know if it would hold up. Don't quote me on that, right? Punch Drunk Love, which is another one of these movies that I thought were kind of brilliant in their own way. And and there were a few other ones. There's Licorice Pizza, which I kind of avoided specifically because I didn't want to kind of relive the California of the 1980s again. But all right, so now we have one battle after another, and one battle after another. It's a few things. It's a political movie. Okay, fine, whatever. It's a it's also based on an author that I don't know how I want to put this. So it's based on a Thomas Pynchon novel called Vinland. So Thomas Pynchon, I think it's Pynchon and not Pynchon, but Thomas Pynchon is a surrealist author, most famous for the novel Gravity's Rainbow. And Gravity's Rainbow, I mean, what is there to really say about this? I want to say that I read it in college. I'm not so sure I finished it. I know I started it in college, but it's one of these things like Infinite Jest. I mean, Infinite Jest probably is a different category. Or Robert Anton Wilson's The Illuminatus trilogy. It's one of those books that you have to read and then you start reading it, and it doesn't matter that if you really read the entire thing, you kind of got the experience, you kind of understood where it was going. And so Pynchon was known for being this great surrealist author. And it was well known that Paul Thomas Anderson, I mean, who is this character? Well, he's one of these Hollywood wonder boys that comes out of the 90s when Hollywood was still, I mean, let's not mince words, it was still giving chances to promising weird young white guys who actually wanted to be different and cool and weird. And here's Paul Thomas Anderson, one of the last great directors, one of the youngest ones. This will probably be one of the last directors that really wanted to do something other than stupid. Hollywood agitprop. Not even agitprop. Agitprop makes it sound like it's cool and communist. Just like Hollywood political slop for awful women. Or I guess awful women is itself redundancy, but you get the idea. And so he has love. He's fallen in love with this Pynchon novel. And this Pynchon novel, I actually haven't read Vinland. I've been told by my friends it's great. I don't know if I mean, again, I don't even know if I've finished Gravity's Rainbow. Uh, it was, but it has a reputation, the reputation of Vinland. And okay, first of all, guys, I'm going to totally spoil one battle after the other. I know you didn't sign up for movie spoilers, but I don't know how to get through this part because I'm just going to spoil this entire movie because I think I need to. I think it's the only thing that will kind of keep the flow going because I feel it's so indicative about so many things in our society. But first of all, let's talk about the book that it was based on. The book it was based on was Vinland, which is this. It is very much a book of the. I think it did come out in the 90s. It was a later book by Pynchon, by this author. It was a later part of his what do they call it? His canon, let's say. And it was not even very well received because unlike his other novels, which were highly surreal, Vinland was only sort of surreal. So it takes place in this mythological Californian county. You know how Faulkner invented a mythological county in, what was it, like Virginia or the Carolinas, to set his novels in? Well, this is Pynchon doing the same thing for California, which doesn't seem to be quite as good, but it's about this group of former 60s radicals that then gets into a conflict with law enforcement later on. And the thing is that the, the way this book came from the 80s. I mean, it was set in the 80s. I'll put it this way: Vinland was set in the 80s during the Ronald Reagan era. And what Ronald Reagan was kind of notable for was that when Ronald Reagan became president, the 60s and 70s were officially over. Like, this was now history. This was now a conflict that was no longer active. And so the characters who were kind of reigniting this battle that they were having in the 1960s, it was understood by the readers and also the characters being in the 80s and the readers being in the 90s, that we were talking about a war that was in some sense futile. This was characters that were battling a non-existent war. And again, in the novel, it's about drugs, which itself is an ambiguous thing. Like, there's no right side. No one in the 1990s thinks that drugs are good. I mean, I guess Pynchon's audience probably thinks some drugs are good, at least the organic ones, right? But there's no understanding that drug dealers are like morally righteous people that need to be defended. And so, what happens, again, I'm kind of paraphrasing a book that I've never read, so bear with me. But, having it described to me, it did seem very much like the original novel was like typical Pynchon novels, like a dash of surrealism, a bunch of ridiculous scenarios unfolding, a lot of ambiguity about what it all means, a lot of hidden references and hidden messages that you had to decode, a lot of subtlety. And moreover, when you read these novels like the Illuminatus trilogy or Gravity's Rainbow, there's this sense that if, the novel itself might not make sense. Right. And this is a quality of all novels before the 2000s. You read novels now, and like it's the novel. It's like every piece of the puzzle is there, and it's there to satiate an appetite or to appeal to a demographic. There's something that's incorporated in that is deep or thick. And this is something that is not true for novels that come from previous eras. Good Lord. Did I just lose my my visual here? I'll have to cut this out. I just realized I got frozen. That is disappointing. Let's see if we can deactivate it and reactivate it. Maybe that will work. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm back. Okay, I that was not the worst place for me to have a technical mishap. So we're just going to keep on going like nothing ever happened. Anyway, in older novels, and this is why everyone needs to go out and read older novels that they actually enjoy. If you take an author that is deeply read, they could suck. Like, I know a lot of people hate Pynchon. A lot of people hate Robert Anton Wilson. It's Robert Anton Wilson, right? I really want to get this right. The Illuminatus trilogy. Yeah, Robert Anton Wilson. That's it. Okay, I mean, but these people, and they're kind of hacks, right? They are kind of hacks. A lot of the books from the Beatnik generation were like this too. These authors, they're not Shakespeare, they're not Carlyle, but they have one thing in common with Shakespeare and Carlyle, and that is, if you take their novels and then you take something that happened in it and you scratch it a little bit, what you'll uncover is kind of like this deep geography of meaning and references and all this stuff, right? So if you take anything in a Thomas Pynchon novel and you go like, oh wow, I wonder where he got that. I wonder where this thread leads. You'll take it and you'll pull the thread and you'll get back to something that actually happened or something that was actually meaningful and a different set of ambiguous stories. And this is something that is just this quality that you kind of appreciate, and something I was kind of looking forward to seeing in this movie, because in some sense Paul Thomas Anderson movies are a little bit like that. if you look at something like there will um, there will be blood. This is a movie that is entirely fictional. But if you just take any little section of that movie and you pull the thread, you'll reveal a whole vista of history and drama when it came to settling and industrializing California in the early 20th century, which is something that a very fascinating era of human history. Like I said, this entire state is essentially a cultivated project. None of these things are natural that are here. They feel natural and they're integrated, and there are some things that are untouched. I'm not going to say there aren't any virgin areas, but all the places that are lived in are kind of contrived artificial ecosystems in California, or at least most of them. And this is the story of the people who kind of built the state literally from the ground up. And so, every one of these things in a Pynchon novel has this quality. So I guess that's why I wanted to watch this, because it was an interesting director, and it was an interesting concept and an interesting source material. And okay, fine, it's political, sure, it's political. The original novel was political too, so who cares, right? It seems like people might be oversensitive. Uh the movie was it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. It is magnificently bad. It's bad in a way that I think that if you bury this movie, the experience of watching one battle after another is just this horrible affront to the idea of art, to the idea of cinema itself. It's like an act of desecration that is a movie. It's a desecration of the original source. But I got like I read it. I mean, it's a desecration of Thomas Pynchon. It's a desecration of Paul Thomas Anderson's career. It's a squandering of the opportunity. It's his transformation into everything that he hated for maybe this one moment. And I'm not even so sure it's like that objectively bad. Maybe if you buried this movie in the sand for 10,000 years and you could divorce it from the context in which it was watched, it might not be the worst movie of all time. But Dan, it is close to being one of the worst watching experiences I've ever had. Right up there with Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, which I did a video about like 5 years ago, where I reviewed BioShock Infinite. It is but the experience. Okay, so you're in California. First of all, the setting of the movie is in California. They moved it to Texas, I believe. But either way. So I go into the theater, and this is the theater. So family are watching the kid, and so I have my wife and I have a night out, and we go to the theater, and the theater is the theater I remember growing up as a child, and I walk into it, and it's a huge cineplex, and there are only three movies playing in it. Like, the other theaters are blacked out because there aren't enough movies that Hollywood is producing. They can get a large enough audience to attract anyone to the theaters. The but the seats haven't changed. The bathrooms haven't changed. The outline of the building is more or less the same. Like, there are still teenagers smoking pot on the top of the parking garage. Like, that institution hasn't changed, I guess. Like, the pot smoking teenagers haven't changed. But the entire purpose of the theater inside is completely falling apart. Like, there's no movies that are playing in this movie theater. And the entire audience are geriatric. They're all boomers. They're all old people. They're all old people, and not only that, like, we have assigned seating because we purchased our tickets online. We have assigned seating, and we sit right behind like a row full of old boomers, which is not the worst thing in the world. The last time that I saw a movie with my wife, we were sitting like in front of a bunch of like loud Indians who were constantly talking through the weapons horror movie during all of the parts that were supposed to be scary. And boomers don't like really talk. They're very conscientious. They're very polite. But that's the context you're seeing this movie. You're seeing this movie with boomers, and originally the source material, the Pynchon source material, was about boomers. So man, maybe something's gonna maybe interesting, right? So you watch the previews. None of the previews are for any movie that you would even remotely want to see. The one movie that's based on an interesting concept, Wuthering Heights, has this like techno girl boss theme in the trailer that makes me want to vomit. And so then finally you get to the movie, and I'm not going to spoil this movie. I really am, guys. So if you want to see the worst movie of all time, at the moment where seeing it in the theaters would be the worst cinematic experience of your life, push a pause on this podcast. Go outside and treat yourself to a cinematic atrocity that you can tell your children about. Because I'm certainly going to tell you about this right now. Okay, so room full of boomers, and immediately problems. Like if they had just, I've heard when I told my friends I was going to see this, like someone told me the plot of Vinland, and then before the movie, I read it on Wikipedia. If they had just stuck with the script, their first problem would have been solved. The first problem I have is it starts with 60s radicals. It starts with a bunch of radicals called, I don't know, the French 76, right? The French 76 sounds like a group of radicals from the days of rage in the late 60s and early 70s, right? Duh, like the original movie, right? But they've got iPhones, but they're using the internet, but they're raiding ICE detention facilities. When does this movie take place? Like, when does this movie take place? Is it the 60s? Like, is what's driving this? And in addition to this, you have Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays like this cocked. I don't even know how to describe him, because if this were a millennial, if these were millennials, and this is in the era of the iPhone, this guy would be like your stereotypical like cucked soy jack Antifa member, and he has his wife, I guess, who's the strong, independent black woman who's firing machine guns off and commanding everyone. Everyone looks, oh my God, you're so amazing, and of course, like she's angry at the entire world. But the problem here is, we don't know what time this is. There's no context to the politics of this, and this is probably intentional. I'm sure that Paul Thomas Anderson, his intention was, you don't know what the political situation is of this world. You just know that these are radicals fighting against the man, and this black woman, she's just angry because of injustice. She's angry because of injustice. It doesn't matter if it's George Floyd or ICE detention facilities or Martin Luther King getting assassinated or Malcolm X or the crack cocaine epidemic in the 70s. Who knows? Like, it could be anything. It could be all of them. She's just angry. Okay, great. And then they're fighting against this ICE sergeant, this border enforcement military officer played by Sean Penn, who's supposed to be like some combination of like Oliver North and Joe Arpaio, like this psychotic WASP military man. Again, like these are just like cardboard cutouts. Like, think of WASP, crazy military man. It's the same character from from Avatar. It's the same character from Avatar. It's the same character from Avatar. It's the same character from every single 80s movie where they had some kind of crazy military guy. It's the same as Jack Ripper from Doctor Strangelove. It's just the paranoid military guy. It's the stock character. He's just the stock character that they inserted into this thing. Sure, I can imagine ICE raids being organized by these old waspy boomers, and of course, like, nobody who's fighting on the military side is like, there's no like black military soldiers. There's no, they're all white guys. They're all white guys that are in their 40s. Some of them have like mustaches, look like they come from Texas. And like, those guys exist. Like, you can see them on TV now. But like, this is just, you're getting a stereotype. And while you're getting the stereotype, the movie is asking you to take this conflict seriously, even though you don't know the stakes, you don't know the political situation. The radicalism of the main character seems to be radically out of sync with the time that they're obviously living in. Uh, and then this Leonardo DiCaprio character, this angry black woman, has an affair with the Sean Penn military guy, in addition to Leonardo DiCaprio, although the former is kind of questionably consensual. And eventually she ends up shooting people because she's an angry black woman. She gets the entire group kind of locked down because now there are murderers, and the Leonardo DiCaprio character has to go on the run with their daughter. Or is it his daughter, or is it the Sean Penn military man's daughter? And that's the plot of the first half, and the second half comes, and this is really bizarre. I'm spoiling the hell of this movie. Already, I'm sinking into my seat with apathy because this is kind of like it's drawing kind of polite murmurs of approval and sensible chuckles from the boomer audience. Of course, that's how it is. 60s radicals are fighting against ICE, entirely comprised of like fat guys from Texas, ruled over by Oliver North lookalikes. That's, of course, we've seen this many times before, as it always is, right? As always must be. And I mean, how much I need to tell you? Of course, the Leonardo DiCaprio character becomes like the dude pothead. He's basically helped out by his friend, who's, I don't even know who his friend is, Benicio del Toro, right? Who's like the uber competent Hispanic guy who knows all the right moves and who's hooked in with the resistance. Everyone's fighting in a giant resistance against the man. And he has a daughter who, of course, is another highly, highly competent black woman. She's only 16, but she's like the sympathetic character that everyone needs to kind of get on side with. And all this is kind of like standard. It's paint by numbers. It's what you'd expect to see. But it's bizarre just how, frankly, they're playing this resistance narrative. Like, there's no irony here. It's just they're just giving you the Antifa narrative. Like, this is the story that Antifa would tell about itself, where we can't really decide whether we're in the 60s or not. We can't really decide if we're in the demographics of 2025 or if this is the 40s. This is, it really only comes down to kind of like one scene that made me kind of, I didn't exactly know how I felt about it. This is the most bizarre scene or decision that Paul Thomas Anderson made, and probably the most interesting thing about the entire movie. So, of course, I expected it just to be a contest between the border control and the Antifa guys 20 years after the initial radicalism, and it would be about the Leonardo DiCaprio character earning the respect of his daughter and showing that he was a good white man. That's what I thought. If you were to just paint by numbers, that is the story you'd get. And of course, Benicio del Toro would be the uber competent non-white guy who'd constantly bail him out as the plot requires, because you can't have competent white men do anything. And sure, that's and of course, you'd have the villainous Oliver North guy. I don't know. The daughter would probably shoot him to avenge her mother or whatever, even though her mother is alive. So the really bizarre thing is how they represent both of the sides in sort of the second half of the movie. All non-white characters and all good people in the entire world are in this one common network that is fighting against the man in this case. They're all fighting against the man. And so, to the point where they're sitting in bunkers. Like every upstanding Mexican business owner has got the underground, a literal underground railroad, and they're all on shortwave radio frequency. Like, this is the age of the internet, but they're all on like shortwave radios, and they all have like code words going back and forth, like it was Star Wars. Like, no one's invented the internet. Like, everyone has an iPhone. No one's invented the internet in this world. They all have like these shortwave radios is where it's at, so it can look like World War II, right? But every single non-white character is like this, to the point where in every single kind of like thick cultural institution is a front for the resistance, to the point where like the Catholic Church, trad Catholic churches, like they're monasteries that are comprised of nuns who aren't social justice nuns. They're like traditional nuns that do the mass and have the really long habits. They're all black women. They're all secret revolutionaries. They're all training for the revolution against this phantom government. It's all one thing, and by contrast, and this is the really funny thing, the Sean Penn character, the Oliver North character, is a pawn of this larger conspiracy to keep America, like all of the American government, like all the corporations, all of the military apparatuses, all of the banks, and all of the mainstream media are in cahoots with this one fraternal society called the Christmas Adventurers, which sounds like basket weaving or something, right? And their one objective is to keep America white and not Jewish. Like, that's the only objective of the American government, is to keep America white and not Jewish. I mean, didn't you know that? Doesn't that resemble the and they're ruled over by like the central leader that looks like Jimmy Carter, like racist Nazi Jimmy Carter, who's in this organization called the Christmas Adventurers and is secretly pulling the strings of the Oliver North characters, to the point where they have to find all of the people in their military command structure, and they have to assassinate every single one of them who might have fathered an illegitimate, non-white or non-Gentile child. Like, that's how much our government cares about this. Like, they have to go through and they have to assassinate the Sean Penn character because he had a child out of wedlock who was not white, potentially, right? And that's what the plot focuses on. Like there's this giant conspiracy of anti-miscegenators that rules our country. What is like JD Vance part of this club, right? Are the Trump children? Like, what year is this? And all of the and these guys, like, they're all of these conspirators, they're all walking around in alligator polo shirts and khakis and going, "Hail Saint Nick," because of the Christmas Adventures, like hail Saint Nick. And I turned to my wife and I said, "This is supposed to be a comedy number. This is supposed to be a comedy number that we're watching. If I were to say this in the context of a Pynchon novel, I would assume that this is a surrealist exaggeration of an anachronism, something that might have been like, there could have been a hint of something like this in the 50s, maybe. You know, by that point, WASP power was already dying, right? And you could see this in a Pynchon novel, and it would be like a comedy, it would be a laugh line. So they're doing all these incredibly stupid things, like these incredibly over the top boomer fever dreams, and I'm kind of like tittering a little bit, but then I'm looking around, and no one's laughing. They're all just like, "Oh my God. Oh my God. Is this what it's really like at the top? Is this who really rules us? A bunch of WASP racists who assassinate people who miscegenate, all the while wearing alligator polo shirts and eating banana pancakes in their New England townhouses. Like, these are the people who rule us. Oh my God. What am I watching? Like, what is the thing that is being communicated? It feels like an entire. Is it a joke on the audience? Is it a joke on? I mean, it felt like this entire. I mean, the way I could interpret this is the entire movie is a giant boomer troll. That this movie is a. But in that case, am I part of the joke? Am I is this a joke at my expense? Did I get trapped by this movie? I'm watching this boomer fever dream idea about what Antifa is. It's the organization of all non-white people and all good people who are simultaneously universally oppressed and super competent against a group of psycho racists who assassinate people for out of wedlock children in the era of the iPhone. That's what's happening. That's the vision of the world that we're operating in. And of course, spoiler alerts, like what's the lesson at the end? Well, the lesson at the end is that we need to shoot all the wasps, and then the cucky Leonardo DiCaprio needs to go and keep on raising the daughter that's not actually his. Do nothing, smoke pot, and let her go out and fight the battle against the man, just like her mother did, and just like her mother might have gotten herself killed doing. Is that the moral of the story? Is is there any awareness in this entire thing? I don't know. It's like this bizarre moment in culture and in storytelling where you're just kind of like you're kind of and I remember, someone's in the chat says, "Oh, this is like an AI generated movie." Not actually so far off from the truth. Just before I saw the One Bad Laugh After Another, I saw Emily Eucas's new movie about Will Stansel, the Will Stansel Show, which she made using the AI program Sora. Okay, fine. It's an AI movie. What's obviously happened is that she just went to Sora and said, "Give me a 5-second scene of Will Stansel doing this. Give me a 5-second scene of Will Stansel doing that." And then she cut all the scenes together, roughly out of what she vaguely wrote. But still, it's kind of impressive. She was able to create a 20-minute movie out of like basically without any animation skill, just using AI and using kind of a minimalistic script. And like several of the jokes landed. I think they were hers. I don't think the AI actually wrote the jokes. But maybe it could have, because they were, all of the jokes were, and someone mentioned this before. Okay, like, so it's basically Will Stansel, and Will Stansel is he's decided that he can solve black urban violence in Minneapolis by using his black studies degree. It's almost more plausible than the serious premise of One Bad Laugh After Another. It's almost more plausible than that. So he, with his black best friend, like intervene in this urban conflict, and he uses his special Will Stansel powers to transform into Wigger Will Stansel, where he talks ghetto, and because he talks ghetto, he convinces all the black people that they need to focus their efforts on defeating the evil Republicans. And of course, it doesn't work out, but it has the same. And what's funny is that it's almost beat for beat spiritually an Adult Swim show. People remember the whole Adult Swim phenomenon from the early 2000s. The Aqua Teen Hunger Forces, the Space Ghost Coast to Coasts. I don't think Home Movies was in that whole genre, but the whole irony core thing. Everything is, the oblongs. Everything is kind of 3 or 4 layers of irony and coding, and and you get kind of like a satire of a show. And because everything has like 5 or 6 layers of irony on it, then you can never really tell what's real and what's not. I mean, it's a very easy thing for AI to replicate, because the adult show, maybe people aren't familiar with this. It's actually kind of an old phenomenon, right? When it came to Space Ghost Coast to Coast, or the Brack Show, or Aqua Teen Hunger Force, these were animation styles that were copied from Hanna-Barbera animation styles. Hanna-Barbera, like Yogi Bear and Scooby-Doo and Droopy Dog and all that stuff. And Space Ghost was a Hanna-Barbera show. I think the Super Friends were also Hanna-Barbera shows. These were minimalistic cells. The characters would move on and do like a very, very limited range of motion. With Scooby-Doo, you can see that. Like the most of the Scooby-Doo characters kind of sit and stand in the same way and just their mouths move like this. So it's a very easily replicatable animation style. And the humor of every show is you take, that's kind of like the Family Guy thing. Like you take cartoon style and aesthetic that comes from the 60s. You mix it with an adult theme, and then you have it work out in a way that is incredibly anticlimactic or subversive. And then you have someone say something ironic that further subverts it on top of the initial subversion. So it's a simple combination, and then two steps of subversion, and you've got your cartoon, right? So like with Will Stancil, it is Will Stancil, the character, like the shitlib lolcow from X, is now animated in Scooby-Doo style with, or Adult Swim style, because we've replicated these things so much, there's no difference, right? And now he has to solve like an epic thing, which is black violence, like mundane black violence using, some equally idiotic thing, and then you subvert it two times. You've got like, it's a formula, right? So is the joke on Will Stancil, or is the joke that this Adult Swim formula is so replicable that you can just put it into an AI and automatically generate it? Is the joke that, or is the joke that, I don't know. I think Will Stancil has me blocked, and I might have him blocked. But before I saw this movie, Will Stancil watched the Emily Eucas satire of Will Stancil and laughed along with the satire of Will Stancil. So is the I who exactly is this joke on? I can tell. I can point to what it's drawing from. I can point to where this picture deviates from reality. There's certainly nothing sincere about it, but it just basically like everything is ironic, everything is subversive. So in the sense of like the Will Stancil show, we're just kind of throwing this irony hot potato back and forth, going, "Oh no, the joke's on you. Oh no, the joke's on you. Oh no, the joke's on you," because the entire thing is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, but subversive. And the same thing is like one battle after another. It became a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. It's it is a surrealistic take on the 1960s radicalism from the perspective of the 1980s, written from the 1990s, then reread from a filmmaker's perspective from the 2000s, and then backcast onto a struggle that has nothing to do with the 60s in the 2020s. Uh, there are so many layers of degradation that what you have pop out on the other side is just like these symbols. Here is a symbol of this. Here is a symbol of that. Now the symbol is doing this. Now the symbol is doing that. And similar to, this is the big problem with Adult Swim shows. Adult Swim shows do not have that kind of deep feeling to them. So, I mean, compare Aqua Teen Hunger Force to something like Confederacy of Dunces, or even something like Monty Python. Or Father Ted. Father Ted exists Father Ted was a comedy show about Catholic priests in the late 80s, early 90s, I believe. But this is kind of a early, or I don't know, early or late. It was like 90s BBC comedy. And the thing about 90s BBC comedy is it had a bit of the quality of those older pieces of media, such that if you took an element out of it, you could kind of scratch it, and you could see like the deep historical lines that linked through it, and broad into the context, the larger context in which this media called Father Ted existed. Like it existed as part of a context. This was about priests living in the backwoods. I mean, not backwoods. In Ireland, the backwoods are these small little islands on the west coast. It's about Catholic priests living in some underdeveloped Irish community when times passed them by, basically. And it could only exist in the 90s. There's no way you could do Father Ted after. I mean, Graham Linehan, who's the creator of Father Ted, I think I got his name right. he came out and said that there's no way you could do Father Ted after the Catholic abuse scandals of the 2000s or the Irish Catholic abuse scandals of the 2010s. Uh, the mood of Ireland would not have accommodated this kind of, oh, we're priests that are out of sync with the time, but we're still in a comfortably a comfortably culturally Catholic community, and still in a culturally Catholic Ireland. That could not exist, and the comedy of Father Ted relied on that reality being around you. The same thing is not true for Adult Swim shows or Emily Eucas's show. Will Stansel is there because there's this person called Will Stansel. There's two ideas, and everything is just a mixture of those two or three ideas plus random iterations and irony. Like that's it. That's it. The same thing is true for One Battle After Another. Like it's just simples. It's just simples. Like there's no historical context. There's no. I don't like. Okay, the Christmas Adventurers. What is the Christmas Adventure? Like, what organization does the Christmas Adventurers represent? Is this organization supposed to satirize something like the Skulls or, I don't know, the Elks or some other WASP fraternal organization? Who knows, right? No, it's not, and it can't. It can't because if it did represent something like that, then immediately the crude way it's being hammered in the plot would make the movie look even worse. So it's just this symbol. Like we need to have a fraternal organization, a supremely evil and supremely racist wasps who the audience feel it would be good to shoot. And so we just grab like elements. Like what do white people like? They like banana pancakes. They like New England townhouses. They like polo shirts with alligators on the front of them. They, that's the wasps. So we just grab those things and we put them together, and then there you go. What are the components of this? What are the good things? Like, what do shitlibs like? Well, they like strong, independent black women, so like we'll put two of those in. They like things that look cultural, right? They like things that look cultural. So we'll have all of the deep cultural elements of the old world, like nunneries, secretly be in the tank of the resistance. Like we'll just do that. Is that a reference to some order of nuns from the past that did this? I guess there were some progressive orders of nuns that did this. They didn't look anything like that. You're not kind of getting an inside track of some vector of life that you weren't aware of. It's just our audience would like this combination of symbols, so we just serve them up this symbolic combination of things, and it just kind of sits there. And I mean, I don't know. I've reacted to this movie. I'll say this: like it did make weapons look a lot better. It made weapons look a lot better because weapons, it was clear, like there were actually things in weapons that were things that had been experiences of the people who made them. And there were references to cultural things that the author genuinely loved, like Twin Peaks, obviously. And there was even a tension in the air that was kind of in weapons. And this is something that I think that a lot of people who went to see it, the best part of weapons, and I'm not spoiling this movie for you, although I don't know. I didn't really like the twist, to be quite honest. But before the before the twist or the real reveal starts happening, it's about these children that disappear from school, like an entire class of first graders. I think it's first grade. They just don't come to class because in the middle of the night they just ran out the front door into the woods and no one ever saw them again. And it's only one teacher's first grade class. The other first grade classes were untouched. It's just this one teacher's first grade class. And the best thing about weapons was the tension building up in the wake of that disaster. Because like a disaster happens and everyone starts blaming each other, which I mean, we can like, that's part of our experience as millennials, right? Some disaster that we never thought was possible and that doesn't require a supernatural explanation, but seems to emotionally require a supernatural explanation. I don't know, you could say COVID or any of the disasters that we've experienced. They don't need supernatural explanations technically, but they seem to, at a deep level, require a supernatural explanation emotionally. So disaster happens and everyone starts blaming each other. And here, a really interesting thing about Weapons as a movie is that immediately a dynamic is set up between the parents, and this is Weapons takes place in the present year, and so everyone has iPhones, and they have, notably for the plot, they've got cameras on their front porches like everyone does in America in 2025, so they can see the kids running out of their houses alone. And that's a core element to establish the plot. So like they have 21st century technology, and the the parents, again, they're all millennials. The actors that play them are all Xers and boomers. So it's a little bit older, but the dynamic is that the parents are all conservative. Like they're all townies. They're all people who live in the town and they work in the town in jobs that are standard and middle American, and would be, you could find people like that in any part of American history. However, the teaching staff, the children's psychologist, the principal, their teacher, single, white, affluent, female, liberal. She's got the problem glasses. She's got the progressive haircut. She's got no husband. She's got no children of herself. The school psychologist, like this gay guy, this urbanite, this professional class person. All of the people on the other side of things are kind of supremely detached people. And so like the finger pointing just kind of kicks off naturally along this barrier. I'm on a complete tangent here, but what I'm saying here is like, when I saw that dimension of Weapons, I'm like, boom. I'm like, I am in a situation that where the art roots are, obviously art is just a series of symbols, but the roots are linked to something. They're linked to a real organic reality that stands behind this. And sure, they're going to tell me a story about what happened to these kids, and it's going to involve, some, culprit or killer or supernatural event that's going to explain it all. Like, obviously I've seen the previews, right? And that's less important, because inside all of these supernatural things going on, like in Twin Peaks, we have this real organic conflict that's going on that represents an actual cultural conflict that I can see going on in my daily lives, like that I know is true. It has, as I said before, it has like the taste of true history, the taste of reality inside of itself, and that's something that like you can, that's kind of the marker of interesting movies. Whereas this like this slop, the kind of this cultural slop in one battle after the other. I feel like even if I were to laugh at it, even if I were to just kind of like, because when that whole Christmas Adventures thing, every time the Christmas Adventures came on the screen, I just wanted to belly laugh inside a theater that was like aghast in genuine horror. All the boomers were just like, it was like basically the moment where Freddy Krueger walks on the screen, or when the Emperor crawls out of the space, you're like, oh my god! And I just want to like laugh so hard at this, but laugh, cry, stand mouth agape at the horror, whatever. You're being hacked, because this thing, it doesn't exist. The perspective is fake. The thing that it's pointing to doesn't exist in any realistic way. It was just kind of like they just took a bunch of qualities, picked them up off the board, threw them together, and like they don't have any emotion. Like Paul Thomas and Anderson never met a group of people that was like the Christmas Adventures and said, I'm going to put you in my next movie. Like, this is interesting. I want to show this in my next movie. He just picked a bunch of quality, like he picked a bunch of adjectives off the shelf, and then he tossed them. He might as well have tossed them in an LLM for all I care, because there's no integration of experience inside this act of creation. All it is a set of qualities that are thrown, like, and genericized, and then randomized and repurposed and processed on the other end. Even if I had belly laughed at that, I would have felt manipulated by this cultural output. It is absolute. I guess, I mean, is that the marker of slop? I mean, maybe it is. Um, I guess this